Hello, this is Tim from the Islington Centre for English, back with another super fast grammar lesson. This time it's narrative tenses. So past simple, past continuous, past perfect simple and past perfect continuous. And it's for higher levels, so upper, intermediate and advanced levels. So I'm looking at all four together. We're going to look at what they mean, of course. We're going to look at what the time is in the sequence of events in the past, and hopefully give you a bit better knowledge and understanding of these four narrative tenses. Let's compare these four sentences. When I left the house this morning, it rained. So, consecutive, complete actions or events in the past. I left the house and then it rained. Slightly unusual perhaps, but very possible. This happened, then this happened. That's the easy one out of the way. Number two, past continuous with the past simple. When I left the house this morning, it was raining. When did it start raining? That's right, before I left the house. When did it finish raining? Yes, after I left the house at some point. So it was in process, it was happening while I was leaving. So in this case, the past simple and the past continuous work very well together. When something happened, something started before it, it continued at that time and continued on afterwards. Okay, let's get more interesting now with the past perfect simple, also known as the past in the past. When I left the house this morning, it was clear that it had rained. It's the past in the past. When did it happen? When did it rain? That's right, it rained before I left the house. When did it finish raining? Before I left the house. Very good. So it started and finished before, and it gives you a timeline. Now the focus here is on the result. How do I know that it rained? I'm sure there is some evidence on the ground. Good, there's a puddle of water perhaps. How long it happened and when it finished, we don't know. It's not important in this sentence. It had rained, we see the result, we know when in relation to when I left it happened before I left, and we see the result, it had rained. Good. Right, now more onto the most interesting of the four. This is the past perfect continuous. When I left the house this morning, it was clear that it had been raining. Now, this is more of a rich tense. There's more going on here. There's more information, not just simply a sequence of events, but this one, the past perfect continuous, tells you a number of things. It tells you, I can smell the rain perhaps. It's more vivid. I think it's recently finished. It had been raining. So we can see some evidence like the past perfect simple. We can smell the rain in the air. We can see a puddle of water on the floor. Things are wet. So it's recently finished. Now the focus is not on the result. It's not on the evidence that we see. The focus is on the activity, the duration, the process of it raining. So if you close your eyes, you can imagine, when I left the house this morning, it had been raining. It had been raining. You see a process, you see an activity, you see the rain falling down when you close your eyes, you imagine it. So it's recently finished. The focus is on the activity itself, not the result. Also, it very often goes with a time expression. So it had been raining all night. It had been raining for hours. So you've got an idea of duration there that goes along with activity. Okay, what do you make of these next sentences? Okay, sentence number one. I arrived, so consecutive complete actions in the past. Past simple. I arrived at my parents' house, my dad cooked. I arrived, step 1. Step 2, my dad cooked. Then he cooked. Okay. One thing is finished, then the next complete action, he cooked. Number 2. When I arrived at my parents' house, my dad was cooking. So, when did he start cooking? That's right, he started cooking before I arrived. When did he finish cooking? That's right, after I arrived. So he was in the process of cooking when I arrived. He'd started before my anchor point in the past, and he finished afterwards. Great. When I arrived at my parents' house, my dad had cooked. Where's the food? On the table. Very good. Or maybe on the pan on the stove. Is the stove still on? No, it's off. It's a complete action that happened before something else in the past. So I arrived home, my dad had already cooked. It's the past in the past. When I arrived at my parents' house, my dad had been cooking. Right, my favourite one. There's more going on. What can you smell? Good, delicious, hopefully, food. So my dad had been cooking. You can smell the food. When had it finished? Had been cooking? Recently, so it's recently finished. Or maybe it's unfinished. My dad had been cooking. I think there's evidence of lots of pots and pans around. You can smell the food. Maybe there's a bit of mess everywhere. It's either recently finished or just coming to an end. Again, you can put duration in there. My dad had been cooking all morning, perhaps. Use the correct tenses in these examples. So there you go. That's another grammar lesson from the Islington Centre for English. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out our online lessons, and I hope to see you one day at our language school in central London in Islington. Take care. Bye.